Okay, we're all ready to join and to go into a brand new thing today. Today is a brand new start. We're going to start off, and it's really tied in with what's going on to the Jewish people around the world. And we mentioned before that we're studying today's Torah in honor of the hostages, in honor of the soldiers, in honor of the Jews living in Israel, in honor of Klal Yisrael. Because what we're going to learn today is a section about the morning blessings that we read. And we learned a lot of things that we have to be thankful for every day. And one of the most important things that we need to be thankful for is the fact that Hashem gave us a Torah. Gave us a Torah, we have what to study. But the Torah is more than just a book. We are known as the people of the book. Our destiny is tied in with the destiny of the Torah. You know, when the Nazis wanted to destroy the Jewish morale, they came in and burnt our Torahs. And so too in all the generations. So the Torah is inextricably part of us. We are known as the people of the book. Why are we known as the people of the book? Which book we're talking about? The book of all books. The biggest bestseller in the history of the world. What's the biggest bestseller? You ask anyone, any bookstore in the history of the world, what book sold the most? The Bible, Torah. That's the biggest seller of the world. More than all the other great authors. This author called God, he made it to the top 10 list. Not just that, he gave the top 10, but he is the ultimate, he wrote the ultimate book, the Torah, he gave it through Moses. And every morning we wake up, we say, thank you, Hashem, for giving us the Torah. The Torah is the book that makes us moral, decent, ethical, level-headed, deep, profound people. It makes us who we are. That's why we're called the people of the book, because we are one with that book. And every morning we wake up and we say, thank you, Hashem, for the Torah. And not only is one blessing, you'll see on page 8, there are 3 blessings we make for that. Everything else we make one blessing for. Thanking God for our neshama, for our body, for our alarm clocks in the morning, for vision, for the ability to walk and to talk and to be what we are. But for the Torah, we make 3 blessings every morning. We all say it, page 8, there's 3 brachas. We say the Torah. We're going to speak in the next couple of weeks about these 3 blessings and to understand why we need 3. Why is 1 not enough? But don't forget, the Torah is like so important, such an important central thing of our lives. Talmud says in Masechet Nedarim that why was Israel destroyed? Was because Alma avda haaretz. Why was the land lost? Al shaloi baruchu b'Torah tchila. Because they didn't make a blessing on the Torah first. It doesn't say they didn't study Torah, but it says they didn't make a blessing. That means they didn't recognize its importance. They didn't recognize it comes from God. They didn't recognize it's God's gift to us. There are many people that study Torah and constantly quoting it, but it's not the relationship. Torah has to be seen as something that starts off with a blessing. It's not just something you open up the book and you read it like a novel in the washroom, or you read it on the couch. Just open up Torah, you read it. No. Torah is something special. We need to recognize it as that. And every morning in the morning blessings, we say, thank you, Hashem, for giving us the Torah and giving us the commandment to study Torah, giving us the opportunity to connect with you through the Torah. Now, this is an important thing. Is that we say Torah is God's gift to the Jewish people. In a roundabout way, it's God's gift to the whole world. But it's God's gift to us. And what is so special about Torah? Now, some people look at it just as a book of wisdom, and we say, no, it's not just a book of wisdom. It is about a relationship with God. Every time you open up the Torah, you study it, you are creating a relationship, a connection with God. The Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that this is the greatest possible connection you can make with Hashem is through studying Torah. In many ways, even more than doing mitzvahs. Torah is the most intimate relationship that a Jew can have with God. The Alter Rebbe explains that mitzvahs is an external connection. When you're doing mitzvah, it's an act. It's external connection. But Torah is an internal connection. And the Alter Rebbe says that every time you study Torah, what's happening when you're studying Torah? We are being transformed, or we are being connected and elevated to God. And he writes, it's like a relationship of a husband and a wife, an intimate relationship, not just a relationship. And he speaks to the difference between mitzvahs, good deeds, and Torah. A good deed you do, it's an external thing that you're doing. You put on tefillin, you light a candle, you give tzedakah, it's outside of you. But when you study Torah, the Torah is entering into your brain. When I'm teaching you Torah now, that Torah, you are internalizing it. As it is written in the verse, and your Torah is in my belly, in my stomach, in my innards. That's what the verse says. V'sayrascha b'soich meyai, that I digest the Torah, I bring it into my stomach. What does that mean then? We're not eating Torah. Some Torah is very delicious, so it's like eating it. But the idea is that different than the other 612 commandments, which are external commandments of the highest order, but nonetheless they are externalizing and reaching out to do something to connect to God. Torah, we're taking God's wisdom and putting it into our minds, into our brains. So it's like Hashem enters into us. And then when we're blown away by the great ideas of Torah, we're surrounded by God. So both God is in us and we are in God. Follow what we're saying over here. The Torah, when we take a piece of Torah and we learn it and you understand it well, at that moment, you are taking the book that God authored, His wisdom, and there's nothing else like His wisdom, and you're taking it and putting it inside you. It's almost like, truth is, any book that you read or anything, you feel like you have the author in you, right? You read a book, someone's book, a good book, right? You digest it, the ideas. So in a way, you are absorbing that author in yourself. You're having a relationship with the author of the book. I'm sorry to tell you that. You'll never read a book the same again, but it'll be a different experience. You are having a relationship with the author of the book because the author has chosen every word. The author has put his soul into the book. Same thing is, when we study Torah, we are taking a piece of God and putting it into us, into our minds. We're digesting it. In fact, the first word of the Ten Commandments is the word Anochi. I am your God who is taking you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. That's the first command of the Ten Commandments. One of the only commandments the Jews actually heard the voice of God. All of the Jewish people, all 2 million that were there present around Mount Sinai, they heard these words. What's the first word of the Ten Commandments? I am your God. Right? What is the word that's used in the Hebrew for I am your God? The word that's used is Anochi. Anochi. Normally in Hebrew, when you want to say I, you say Ani. You say Ani, you don't say Anochi. Anochi sounds like it's an Arabic accent. Sounds like Anochi, right? It's not Ani. It's not Ani, it's Anochi, right? Where did the Chi come in over there, right? Talmud says actually that it's not even a Hebrew word. Anochi was an Egyptian word. So I wasn't way off when I said Anochi. The Talmud says it's an Egyptian word that's placed in the Torah. And not just placed in the Torah, but it's placed in the Ten Commandments. And not just in the Ten Commandments, but the word Anochi is the first word of all of the Ten Commandments. An Egyptian word, so they asked the question, how is it possible that the first word won't be Hebrew? It's Egyptian. Why would the Torah employ it? So the Talmud says that it's actually an acronym. You know what an acronym is? It's an abbreviation. Every letter of the 5 letters of Anochi, Aleph, Nun, Chaf, Yud, 4 letters, the 4 letters of Anochi, they are an acronym. Now, what is the acronym? Ana, which means Ani, Hashem says. That's the first letter, Aleph. Nun is nafshi, I, my soul. God says, my soul. Ksavit, in the ksav, in the writing, Yahavit, I place myself. Ano nafshi ksav yahavs. Talmud says that the Anochi is an abbreviation that God says, you want to have me? You want to know where to find me? Anochi. I place myself in writing, in this writing, in the writings of the Bible, the writings of the Torah. If you want to find me, you want to discover me, you want to be close with me, you want to have a relationship with me, I'm there. That's where I am. I'm like an author that places himself in the book. So where's God? God is in Torah. You open up a page of Torah, a random page of Torah, you read it and understand it. God gave us an opportunity to have a connection, a relationship with him. Because of the Alter Rebbe explains. So God, if we understand that God is in it. Yeah? Now, it's an absolute genius that God can put himself into a book. God is infinite, right? Infinite wisdom, infinite knowledge. And you open up a page of the Torah, and you see there's a nice story of Noah and the ark. Place. 2 of each animal came in, and there was a flood for 40 days and 40 nights, and God destroyed the world and brought out Noah, and he brought some sacrifices. Maisele, a children's story. But we know if it's God's wisdom, there must be layers and layers and layers of understanding in this, right? Must be layers. But God, in his infinite wisdom, contracted himself for our benefit, so that we, simple people, can have a relationship with him. He placed himself in a little storybook, in stories. Some parts of the Torah are very hard and deep, but a lot of it is just simple stories, Bible stories, as we call it, right? A little child can have a relationship with God like the biggest genius, because God put himself into that story. Now, how you find God in it, for that you have to learn and try to discover, etc. But the basic level of Torah was brought down to little poems, little stories. Now, we know that amongst authors, some of the most brilliant authors are the ones that write children's stories. Some of the most brilliant authors are the ones that write little children poems. Why? If you look at it on a simple level, it's all like simple rhymes and stories. But if you ever go to university and study some of these stories, very deep ideas were being infused. And it used to be, we had once a story in when we went to school. I had to study it for some test. I don't remember what it was. Animal Farm. A famous story book called Animal Farm. It's about animals, this animal, that animal. And it was a mashal, it was an example for communism, socialism, capitalism, very, very deep, social studies kind of book. But if you're looking at the surface, it was all a story about the animals fighting between each other. And it's called animal farm. Truth is, we're all living today in a real animal farm. We have a lot of serious animals in this world. But what was it? There's a genius who wrote this book. He made it like a simple story, but he infused in it and injected in it deepest ideas. Infinitely times more. You can imagine God is the infinite mind. God is the mind of all minds. And God took his deepest ideas way deeper than Einstein and Freud and anybody else who was smart in the whole. You take everybody in the whole history of the world, the Aristotle and Plato and alle Schwarzier. You take them all together, all the geniuses, and you put them all together. It doesn't come to a pinky of God's wisdom. And God tells us he takes all his wisdom and he places his soul into Torah. So now you know that when you're studying Torah, it's not just a simple experience. Why did God do it that way? Because he wanted that the preschool kids can get a little bit in on it. Us, the preschool kids, compared to him. He wanted us to have a little bit of an understanding of him. How did he do it? He came down into the lowest, simplest levels. Why not put it in a big philosophy? To God, the philosophy and the simple stuff is exactly the same. It's just as far from where he is at. So he takes his genius of all geniuses, and brings it down. The Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that genius of God bringing down the Torah from the highest to the low says the Torah is compared to water. You know, water, why is the Torah compared to water? Because water has the same characteristic. Water goes, you take water anywhere in the world, find water flows downward. It's always flowing from the highest point down to the lowest low. It keeps on going low. If you make a lower place, the water will continue. Right? All the rivers and are basically water from the mountaintops that came down into the valleys. That's where all the rivers and the ravines and everything we have. You always see all the waterways are always in the lowest point. Water makes its way from the highest point to the lowest point. That's the character of water. So the Torah is compared to water because water also came from the highest point, God's wisdom, and came down to the most simplest thing. But really, that coming down from the highest to the lowest is really the greatest genius of God. When I say the greatest genius of God, people think that a genius is something that you don't understand, that you're blown away with. That is called the genius of expansiveness. The genius of expansiveness is when I'm such a genius that I have such a broad base of knowledge, expansive, and I'm deep. The depth is. Then there's another genius, is the ability to connect to other people, to communicate, and bring your ideas into the simplest form. That is an amazing genius. To take an Einstein idea and to bring it for down to a simple nursery kid. People that have done that have been the best teachers in the history of the world. But it's no less a genius than the ability to understand expansively. Okay, so if you could look at it maybe more, there is the breadth of the knowledge, the length of the knowledge, but then there is the ability to bring it down to the lowest level, and that is another form of genius. So we say in the Talmud that God's genius is just like he is genius. Kishem, just like you find his greatness in his expansiveness, you also find his greatness in his humility. That's what the Talmud says. God's greatness is in his humility. The Alter Rebbe says, what's humility? Well, God is humble, Is that what we're speaking about? And I says the humbleness of God is when he could sit down in an elementary classroom, like and that's humble because God doesn't feel threatened by us little guys. The angels are just as far from him as we are, right? So he goes down, he gets down on his feet, and I always admire parents who are great people in their own fields, whatever they are. And when they come home, they get down on their feet and they sit down with the kids and the grandchildren and they say gaga goo goo, and they go back, oh, it's so cute, boo boo. You ever see some parents that do that? They get down on their knees and they get down on the floor and they have little eniklach or they go, oh, they're cute, Here they are, the biggest, greatest people in the world, but they come. Hashem does the same thing. It's an ability to be able to communicate to someone that doesn't have the tools yet. So Hashem came down, and he came down in the nursery tales of the Torah. It looked to be like nursery tales, right? The stories, little stories. But every time we study one of those stories, we are swallowing and absorbing in our inner hearts a piece of Hashem. And that should really be encouraging and enlightening, and it should be an incentive for us to want to learn more Torah. Because every time you study Torah, yes, you get a lot of wisdom from the Torah, but you're also like piece of Hashem. He put himself into that book. So we said, but Torah is even greater in a way than just studying any book where you have a relationship with the author. But the Torah is, Alter Rebbe writes that Torah, it works two ways. When you understand a little bit of Torah, that Torah becomes part of you, so you have an inner relationship with God. So you are your mind is surrounding God. But then there's another thing that then at some point you say, wow, it's much deeper than anything I possibly can understand. It's much, much deeper. And then you're blown away by the Torah. And then you realize that God's knowledge is way greater than you, and you don't have any understanding. Maybe tomorrow you'll understand a little more. But today you say, I understand this, but then there is so much more. So that moment that you realize that you know so little of what the knowledge is, then you feel small, and then you feel surrounded by God. So it's like God giving you a hug. So we are embracing God when we understand something from Torah, right? And God is embracing us at the same time in the parts that we say, you're beyond us, you're much greater than us. We don't get it. As much as we think we get it, we see that there's something way more. So it's a hug both ways. So it's a totally intimate relationship. It's a relationship where I hug Hashem and Hashem hugs me. So it's happening in both ways. So now we see that the understanding of Torah is something that is the greatest possible relationship that a person can have with Hashem. Like we said, when you do a mitzvah, you're doing a coin, that's an external relationship. But when you're learning something, you're internalizing it. We say not just internalizing it, but you're also blown away by Hashem. So Hashem is surrounding you, you're surrounding Hashem. And there is no greater unity than this in the entire universe. That's all in the study of Torah. So I'm giving you a little bit of the Kabbalistic concept of studying Torah. So this is, after all, a Kabbalah class. So now we know that the studying of Torah is something where we make the greatest relation, and that's why we are so thankful to Hashem for giving us that opportunity. And we spoke a little bit about survival of the Jewish people and how our destiny has been intertwined with the destiny of Torah. In every generation, Jews study the Torah, and that has been our lifeline. That's how we survived. Now, many people have different theories of how the Jewish people survived for thousands of years, the only nation that lived so long. There's some attributed to anti-Semitism, some attributed to stubbornness. We're obstinate people. We never give in. Right? I prefer to think that it has to do something with. Some say the Shabbat. You mentioned Shabbat, right? It could be also the Shabbos, yeah. As the famous writer Achad Ha'am said, more than the Jews kept the Shabbos kept the Jews. But we've had many Jews throughout the centuries that didn't keep Shabbos, in our generations even so. But it's our connection to overall Torah that I believe has been the key to our survival. Many people say it's Israel, but the Jews weren't always in Israel. Many generations where we didn't live in Israel. I mean, only a few Jews always lived there, but overall the Jews were living in Ashkenaz and Sfard, Europe, and in the Mediterranean countries. We lived in many places. Well, it wasn't Israel. So what was the key of survival? Key of the survival of the Jewish people was when the second temple was being destroyed. And the Jews were being banished by the Romans from Israel. Titus was destroying the temple. So just before that, there's a famous rabbi, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He smuggled his way out of Jerusalem and he met up with the Roman emperor. And the emperor was very impressed with him. He says, "What can I give you, Rabbi, as a token of appreciation?" And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to him, he says, I know you're planning on destroying Israel. He says, but I need you to save one city called Yavne. He says, Tain li Yavne v'chachameh. He knew he couldn't get everything because this was a war, right? The Romans were already in the process of defeating Israel. But he asked the rabbi, what can I give you? He says, Tain li Yavne, don't touch the city of Yavne v'chachameh. That was the main central place of Torah study in Israel at the time. It's outside of Jerusalem. That was where the great academies of learning was there at that time. So he says, spare Yavna and its scholars. And the reason why the Talmud tells us this story is to tell us something much deeper. Is to tell us, and he kept his promise. He didn't touch Yavna. And that's where later on, when you see in Israel, all the great rabbis that were all in Yavna, times of Rabbi Akiva, and all the great Jewish scholarship flourished in that Yavna group. And that's where Judaism sort of really moved into a survival mode, which is through our Jewish academia. That means from a nationalistic existence, the Jews moved into a study mode, into a faith mode, into a mode of learning constantly our heritage. And that is what has kept us for thousands of years. See, that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, some people, the Talmud says he should have asked for more. But if you think about it, he was a very wise man. He was one of the greatest rabbis that ever lived. He says, give us Jewish scholarship. Because he realized that as long as Jews will connect themselves to their constitution, to their book of books, we will continue to survive forever. I have more to tell you about this, more about the Torah, and we have three blessings that we're going to go through and try to understand why we have three blessings. One of the blessings is the blessings that one makes when they go up to the Torah, but that's a blessing that everyone makes every day. And there's two other blessings, and we'll go through with great detail all the different blessings on the Torah. But what's important to take away from this class, I think, was 2 points. One point is that studying of Torah is the greatest spiritual, religious experience that a Jew can possibly participate in. And you can be anywhere for that. You just open up a book and you learn. That is a relationship with God, the greatest relationship with God. That's one point. And the second point is the Torah, and we'll continue more on this point next week. The Torah has been the key to Jewish survival. And as Rabbi Yechon said, we want the Jews to live on. So even without our land, even without, as long as the Jews will continue to learn, we will continue to thrive and continue to survive. So Hashem bless you all. Have a good Shabbos. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? You're welcome. The Jews don't have questions. What's going on?
Rabbi, I do.
Yeah.
We say 4 brachot when we get called up to the Torah, not 3.
Yeah, there's 2 blessings that we say. One before the Torah reading, and one after.
Okay.
There's the word Baruch Hu that one says also, but that's just that's just an invitation to the congregation to listen to what's going on. Like Baruch Hu is like it's called a convocation. It's like a call out to everyone. Pay attention. Blessed be God, that kind of thing, right? But the bracha is 2 brachas. Ashabacha banu, the first bracha, and Ashanasa lanu, which is afterwards. So the bracha Ashabacha banu, who has chosen us from all the nations, given us the Torah, that blessing is said every day in the morning. Brachot.
Thanks, Rabbi. Now I understand.
You're welcome. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah. What was the rabbi name who asked for the to spread the city?
For what? There was what? They're asked to save
what
the
was
city.
that rabbi's name?
Yochanan ben Zakkai. Yochanan, the son of Zakkai. Yeah. Yochanan ben Zakkai, you see, in Pirkei Avot, he's mentioned he had 5 famous students. Well, those 5 famous students really started the Mishnah and the Talmud. That whole Jewish scholarship that today we attribute to the Mishnah and the Talmud all started with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that was that rabbi.
Thank you.
Okay. By the way, the name Yochanan it was a very popular name amongst the Jews in those days, and the name Yochanan in English, it was a popular name amongst Christians too.
Sure.
It's the name Yohan. Yochanan is Yohan. Yohan became
John.
Well, later became John. So the name John comes from the name Yochanan. That's where it comes from. Yeah. The name Jonathan is a different name. The name Yochanan, source of the name John. Today. We have John Street here, right? In Thornhill.
The green. I know, but I hint this instead.
Okay. Sei gesund, Chevra. Agit Shabbos, everybody. I wish everyone a good Chodesh Adar, a joyous month. All the best.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.